Abraham, the founder of the religion, according to Midrash, was the son of a person who was a wholesaler of idols. And one day, his father, Terah, he went on vacation with Mrs. Abraham, or Abramson, or whatever their family name was. And they went on vacation, and they left Abraham in charge of the store. Now, Abraham was a young man. He was a bit of a zealous young man at this age. You see, he mellows out over time. But he wanted to do a little bit of commercial activism in his dad's store. So basically, when people would come in to buy idols, he would engage them in conversation. He'd say, "How old are you?" He said, "Well, 60. "I know for a fact that this idol that you're purchasing was manufactured last week. How could a self-respecting 60-year-old lady like you worship an idol that is 2 weeks old?" And the lady would get flustered and awkward and whatever, and she'd leave the store. So he would evolve a little bit. By the end of his tenure, the week-long vacation in wherever they were, in the Sinai Desert or something, vacationing or scuba diving or whatever, his parents came back, and at that point, Abraham had smashed all the idols in the shop, and he left a big mallet in the hand of the biggest idol in the back of the shop. His father opened the door. The dust cloud from all the idols was still kind of billowing in the air, and he screamed in his Mesopotamian accent, "Abraham, what did you do?" At which point Abraham said the following thing. He said, "It wasn't me, it was him," pointing to the idol in the back, the biggest one holding the mallet in its hand. Abraham's father says to him, he says, "Abraham, it's a statue. Don't give me that blank. Yeah?" And Abraham says, "Do your ears hear what your mouth is saying? Do your ears hear what your mouth is saying?" His father, not really sure what to do. This is not normative behavior in Mesopotamia at this period of time. He takes him to Nimrod. Nimrod is the political leader, but he's also like the chief theologian. They kind of went hand in hand. And Nimrod basically threatened Abraham, if he didn't bow down to a fire, to be thrown into the fire. And back then, just as today, if you get thrown into fires, it's not good. Okay? So Abraham said, fine, it's great, I'll bow down to whatever you say, but why bow down to the fire? Why don't we bow down to the water? Because the water puts out the fire. So Nimrod said, yeah, okay, you want whatever it is, water, fire, bow down to the water. So he said, okay, great, I'll bow down to the water. Abraham said, wait, before the water, why don't we bow down to, what do you say? The sun is a good guess. He says cloud, because the water comes from the clouds. So the cloud is like the source of the water. Let's bow down to the clouds. He said, okay, whatever you want, just bow down to something. So he said, we should bow down to the wind, because the wind pushes the clouds. And he's flustered. He said, you know what, we should bow down to people, because people can stand up to winds, even quite strong winds. He said, that's it. And he took him and he threw him into the fire. Okay? At that point, Abraham said, this is what you have to do. He wasn't the last Jew to be thrown into a fire for his beliefs. So he went to the fire. Abraham emerged from the fire. Right? Sorry about the spoiler over here. Okay? Abraham emerged from the fire and he went on to found our religion. While he was in the fire, his brother, a person by the name of Haran, he kind of was hedging his bets. Haran said, wow, this is a tense moment right now, because I'm kind of caught in between my brother, who's a really admirable, intense person and just got thrown into a fire for his beliefs, and the person who threw him into the fire. So whose side am I going to take? So he hedged his bets, as many of us do. And he said, if Abraham emerges from the fire unscathed, he didn't know the end of the story, he never heard this midrash. He says, then I'll be on Abraham's side. But if he dies, then what can I do? Then clearly his faith was not a real faith. And so I'll side with Nimrod and just be a card-carrying pagan like everybody else. So Abraham came out, and people were aghast. And Haran said, I'm with Abraham. Haran got thrown into the fire. And what do you think happened to Haran? What's that? So believe it or not, he came out. The Midrash says he came out. And the Midrash says, based on the verse in the Torah, that Haran ended up dying in front of Terach, his father. It says at the face of Terach, his father. Meaning, his insides got burned. Fire tends to burn your insides and your outsides. But only his insides got burned, and his exterior, his outsides, were unscathed. So he kind of stumbled out, and there he died. End of Midrash. Okay? That's the end of the Midrash. Okay? Very cute, very nice. What does it mean? I'm going to suggest to you a way of understanding the Midrash. Human beings have to believe in something. You have to believe in something. You go about your day, you do your thing, you believe in something. There's a reason why you're running around like everyone else in the city. We obviously believe in something. We're trying to get something. We believe that if we act in a certain way or don't act in other ways, so that we're going to get certain consequences. We have something called belief. Belief drives action. We have beliefs. The question is, do we have questions about those beliefs? Are we willing to subject our beliefs to questions, or are they kind of rigid, sterile, monolithic ideas that they are what they are and we don't question? Avraham was willing to question absolutely everything. And Avraham was a person, especially as he grew older, that he wanted to engage people in these conversations so that people's idols, their mental idols, these mental beliefs, these rigid beliefs, would crack under their own weight and would give way to something deeper and truer. This is why he engaged this lady. He said, how old are you? 60. He says, 2 weeks old. What are you doing? He wanted the lady to figure it out. She ran away. She couldn't deal with the attack on her beliefs. When he went to his father, what did he do to his father? He said, Dad, do your ears hear what your mouth is saying? You know, you have to imagine, he's in the idol industry. He then goes to idol church or idol mosque or idol synagogue, whatever he goes to, right? You can't, you know, when like you work in the kitchen, like you can't really eat the food, you know, in the same way, right? Because you know what goes on back there. So his father knew the commercial dark side of the idol world. Like he couldn't really believe in it, and he didn't believe in it because he said, "Come on, Avra, give me a break. Do you think I'm going to buy that?" So he says, "Do your ears hear what your mouth is saying?" So then he goes to Nimrod, and Nimrod says, "Where's the fire? Why not the water? Why not the cloud? Why not the wind? Why not the person? Too many questions. Shut up and get in the fire." Because his belief was a true belief, so what happened to him was something through and through. Notice his belief was, he was a person who lived and died by his beliefs. Lived and died by his beliefs. So his insides and his outsides were saved. His brother Haran, his beliefs were not like that. His beliefs were much more like Haran than Avram in a certain way. Because we hedge our bets, we have our beliefs, but we're kind of waiting to see results. If we see results, then we will go on with those beliefs. So Haran said, if he comes out, I'm with him. As a result, the only thing miraculous about his beliefs was the fact that, he was willing to put his money where his mouth was. If Avram emerged, he was willing to walk into a fire. Raise your hand if you're willing to walk into a fire if someone else walks out of a fire. I mean, that's a fluke thing. It's very cool, but I don't necessarily want to be the guinea pig for the second try. But Haran did. So it was supernatural for him to believe it, but superficially supernatural. And therefore, he got a superficially supernatural effect. What this Midrash is telling us is about the way we think, the way we believe. It's not just a historical fable. It's not just historical fiction. It is the story that is very, very, very true. If it happened exactly like that, I don't know exactly how it happened, but the sages are teaching us about our beliefs and teaching us to question things, to believe things because they're true and be willing to live and die by those beliefs. What does this have to do with the Big Bang? So, let's talk about it. About 100 years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century, it was observed that the galaxies in the universe were moving apart. And they were moving apart in a way that the further apart the galaxies were, the faster apart they were moving. So this galaxy and this galaxy are moving apart, but not nearly as fast as this galaxy and that galaxy. They're zooming apart much faster. In layman's terms, this is called an explosion. There was a man who had all this data. His name was Albert Einstein. We normally don't recognize him because his hair is so black and less bushy than we recall. But this is young Albert Einstein. In 1917, Albert Einstein published a paper trying to apply his theory of general relativity to the entire cosmos to see if it was true. And he really wanted to know if it was true. But even though he saw the galaxies were moving apart, he could not accept the conclusion, the full conclusion, because he was an educated person, and as much of an out-of-the-box thinker he was limited. He's human after all. And he was affected by another man who preceded him by about 2,000 years, whose name was Aristotle. Aristotle was a person who formalized that the universe always was and always will be. The universe is static. The universe is eternal. That idea was so embedded in the minds of every educated person that Einstein could not conceive of what would happen if you rewinded the tapes. And infamously, Einstein fudged the data. Or more accurately, he fudged what's called the cosmological constant. The constant in the formula that tells you what the universe is doing, he literally fudged it. You can look it up yourself, don't take my word for it. And he regretted it to his dying day. Because aside from all of his accolades, he could have also been credited with the theory of the Big Bang, which later became known as the Big Bang. It's not even the theory, it's just the Big Bang. Who was actually credited with the Big Bang? This man, Edwin Hubble, known for the Hubble telescope. Edwin Hubble is credited because he saw the same data, didn't have better, it was basically the same data that Einstein saw, and he was willing to question it to its conclusion. What conclusion is that? That, well, if stars and galaxies are expanding, so that means if you run the tapes backwards, right? No, sorry. If you run the tapes backwards, eventually, what do you get? Anyone see this going? Sorry, it's taking so long. I messed it up. Yeah? That is the logical conclusion, and this is not religion. This is science. Yes, science understands that when we say the universe is, how old is the science estimate the universe's age? More or less, give or take a billion years. How much?
64 billion.
No, that's quite a bit more.
13.5.
Yeah, about 13.5 billion years old. But guess what? What was 13.5 billion years ago? That. Okay? Now, that's an amazing thing just to ponder, the age of the universe. But you know what's more amazing? Is that the universe went from something to nothing. Or sorry, that's actually the way the Kabbalists say it, from nothing to something. Yeah? This idea, this is the opening word of the Torah, which you're familiar with, right? In the beginning ran contrary to normative intellectual conception of reality. As we said, since Aristotle for 2,000 years, the universe was eternal. You cannot open the Torah without the opening line of the Torah flying in the face of normative intellectual understanding of the cosmos. So if you were Jew and you were educated, you were maybe uncomfortable, perhaps hedging your bets, perhaps kind of jumping between one and the other. So when people say, Rabbi, or whatever your name may be, you're Jewish, you go to Jewish classes, you do Jewish learning, how do you really reconcile science and Judaism? So really, you shouldn't be on the defensive. Judaism has been continually validated and vindicated in the face of science. And we held by that opening line of the Torah, and we kept reading until the very end, and then we'd start back over again, because this is what we believe. And we're going to understand why it makes sense. But to science, this was an amazing thing. Because, and this is what bothered Einstein, is that if it goes back to a point, that means that before the point, there was nothing. And this right here, which is probably the least impressive special effects you've ever seen in your life, this is the most amazing thing that has ever happened in the history of the universe. That there can be anything at all. Anything at all. I want you to think about this. This requires thinking or smoking something. Whichever is your choice, okay? Whatever gets you there. But if you think that the universe is 13.5 billion years old, that means that both space and time are 13.5 billion years old. Space-time, if you're familiar with that term, is 13.5 billion years old. Now, if time is 13.5 billion years old, and I were to ask you, well, what was there before the Big Bang? What is the answer to that question?
Time is man-made.
Time is not man-made. What's man-made are hours, minutes, and seconds. But time itself is not man-made at all. Time is one of the most important variables in science, right? The way we divide it up, that's man-made. But time is a real thing. What came before the Big Bang? The wrong answer is nothing. Because when we think of nothing, what we basically think of is outer space. This big outer space, a big wide universe, and then all of a sudden, and this people tell me this all the time, Rabbi, I don't believe in God, I believe in the Big Bang. And I was like, well, what is the Big Bang? Well, I think the Big Bang, well, wasn't it like an asteroid that exploded? And no, that's not the Big Bang. There was no space, and there was no time. Again, that's not Rabbi Jack speaking, that's normative science. The Big Bang posits that the universe is 13.5 billion years old, and before that, there was not even nothing. This is the way my physics professor explained it in college. What existed before the Big Bang is what you see behind your head. If you see something behind your head, you must go see a neurologist immediately. You don't see behind your head. There's no seeing behind your head. You don't see nothing. It's not nothing. There's no sight. Sight begins over here and it continues over here. But behind your head, there's no sight. There's so nothing that the word nothing doesn't capture how nothing it is. And this is the history of the universe. It starts here and then continues. Right? This is a diagram of the Big Bang. There's a moment when it begins and the universe expands and expands and expands. These are stars and galaxies, and it's expanding. And this is all very interesting, and you can get your BA and Masters and PhD and all that stuff, and it's all very nice. But you do not need, not a PhD, not a Masters, not a BA, to contemplate what happened at this point. This is the opposite of complicated. It's the opposite of complex. It's a very simple thought, which is why intelligent people stumble over it. Intelligent people stumble over simple thoughts. Intelligent people like complexity because it allows them to be smart. When things get simple, that's when it's difficult. Because why is there anything? That's the question. In other words, science says, well, why do people, you guys all work in the business world or something, so you're producing some sort of product, so you ask people, well, who are they going to buy? They're going to buy this, they're going to buy that. How much are they going to buy? Whatever. Yes, the person who got their master's in economics or business, they tell you, people like this, that because based on psychology, human psychology, they're looking for this, they're looking for that. What's that based on? It's based on neuroscience. What's that based on? It's based on neurobiology, which is based on biology, molecular biology, which is based on biochemistry, it's based on chemistry, it's based on physics. And then what? What's physics based off of? Well, you kind of hit the end of the road, which is why I actually like physics, because it's so interesting, because you hit the glass wall on the other side. Physics just is. You use mathematics, but physics is physics, and the world works because the world works. Physics will never tell you why there's a world. You hear this point? Maybe you remember at some point in social studies, you're a kid or whatever, maybe you studied anthropology, that diagram of the ancient people who say, where does the world rest? Well, it rests obviously on the back of an elephant. Oh, thank you. And what does the elephant rest on? Oh, that's a very good question. The elephant rests on the back of an eagle. Oh, the eagles. Oh, what's the eagle resting on? And so on and so forth, right? At some point, you can get lazy and be like, okay, I guess the eagle rests on a gazelle, and the gazelle rests on a cheetah, and the cheetah rests on a squirrel, and so on and so forth. And you're like, the squirrel, whatever. I have stuff to do. I can't keep pondering the question. That's for a cocktail conversation another time. Squirrel, great, squirrel. And we move on with life. But if you take that question to the nth degree, you must come to something which is fit to be the source of everything. There has to be something. There has to be something in the equation which is different from everything else. And from that something which is different from everything else, everything must come. That is what bothered Einstein. It bothered him. Because if you draw it to the nth degree, the conclusion is so crazy, so radical, that means that the universe was brought into being. Don't use the word created, but the universe began. And if it began, why did it begin? It can't be because of something that was happening before the universe, because there is no before. So, well then, what's going on? The universe is eternal. Let's just not think about it. Yeah? You might as well say it rests on a squirrel. Right? The universe is eternal. Today, the fancy way of saying it is, well, it's really because of quantum mechanics. Oh, well, what's quantum mechanics based on? It's based on a speculative theory called meta-quantum mechanics. Meta-quantum field theory. Oh, what's that? Meta-quantum field theory. I'm so happy you asked, right? It's the same thing. You're basically saying the universe rests on a squirrel. There must be something which is not a squirrel, or a gazelle, or an eagle, or an elephant. There must be something of a different order. And that is what true, intellectually honest questioning leads you. It leads you to a conclusion which is disturbing, but it's okay. It's okay. The conclusion is, it's okay, it's safe. It's just different. It's just not what you expect. It's not what you hear. But that is, Judaism in a certain sense is the most anti-religious of all the religions. It's the religion that's willing to question everything until the nth degree, even if the conclusion is not what we want. I'm going to just end with a maybe more personal note, and then we'll finish. If anyone wants to keep talking about it, we'll be here. Lynn, Tali, my Blockman's over there in the back, Mandy. We talk to each other. There's a lot to talk about, but I just want to end with a personal note. Shabbat is actually Thanksgiving. Shabbat is Thanksgiving. King David illuminated this for us. He says, Mizmor Shir Liyom Shabbat, a song for Shabbat. Tov L'hodot L'Hashem. It's good to thank God. And the question is, why is that? Shabbat, we recognize that God rested on the seventh day. And what does that do with Thanksgiving? The answer is like this. We get used to in life whatever we have. And it's an amazing thing. It doesn't matter how much you have, you will get used to it. You're going to get used to it. Doesn't matter how wealthy you grew up. At some point, you're used to it because that's just what you have. And so therefore, we don't question what is, unfortunately. Not naturally. So we only question when things get taken away from us. And then we complain and we get upset, we get angry and whatever. When things get taken away, because that's what we have, status quo. Shabbat, that point where we realize we gotta just stop and think about that if there's a goal for the universe, then there's a beginning. If there's a beginning of the universe, there must be a goal. If the universe was created, it must be created for a purpose. If it's created for a purpose, we better stop and think about it and appreciate it. To say it differently, if you woke up this morning and on your lap was breakfast in bed, and you just said, oh, and just ate your breakfast and wiped your mouth and put the tray aside and went about your day, went to work, that would be strange. Yes? That would be strange. Because, I don't know about you, I don't get breakfast in bed every day. Yeah? If you do, you must have the most amazing roommates ever. But if you do, you better say why is there breakfast on my lap? Who put breakfast on my lap? But it's identical to waking up and opening your eyes and being able to see. Because guess what? Some people can't see. And so and thinking about the fact that some people can't see should make you aware of the fact that you can. But because you do, and you do every day, you don't stop to appreciate what that means. This kind of thinking is not just, what do we call again, Bianca? Philosophy salon conversation? Yeah? This is not just cocktail conversation. This is not just philosophy. This is not about publishing a philosophy paper or anything like that. This is about your whole perspective in life. Do you take things for granted? Do you stop and appreciate that things came from somewhere? They're not just here. Are you willing to question? Are you willing to say, why was I gifted with everything I was gifted with? Why did God give me all the resources, all the connections, all the gifts, all the help, God willing, that you have? Why do I have that? To what purpose? To what end? That ability to question is your life force. It's what you believe in. Ultimately, the answer to that question of why you have what you have, to what end, are your beliefs. And those are the beliefs that we have to take with us every day of our lives. We have to live and We should not have to, but if need be, a Jew is meant to die with those beliefs if it's a matter of bowing down to an idol or being thrown in the fire. Ultimately, we all have it in our spiritual DNA, like Abraham. We'll walk into the fire of those beliefs because there's nothing more real than what you know to be true. And in a world that challenges you, that says, don't think about that far, you're thinking too much, stop thinking, the Jew has to be both in terms of what's true philosophically and what's true morally and ethically and what we live up to. A Jew has to be willing to walk into the fire. At least walk into challenges. Walk into the challenges, everyday challenges of naysayers and people who tell you you're wrong. And so this is what I want to share with you a little bit today. Big Bang. Everything after that is, of course, evolution. God wants the world to develop organically, unfold. But before we get into evolution and the unfolding of the world which God wants, of course, God wants the world to unfold naturally, we have to go to that point where it all began and ask the question that needs to be asked. Where does it come from? Thank you very much. Hopefully you got something out of it. Looking forward to speaking about it.